Rightio, welcome back on in Skin Clubbers. We have another video for you, and if you watched our video last month, we are more or less doing the exact same thing, but for ANZ. So we obviously did the top 20 Asia players of the modern era. Now it's going to be the top 20 ANZ players of the modern era. Shout out Chris Dexter Nong one time. Didn't quite make the cut for Asia, even though he claims to be Asian and has played his entire career in ANZ, but may make the cut for the ANZ list. Let's hope so anyway. Otherwise, I'm sure we'll be hearing about it on Twitter. But you guys know the drill, obviously, standard stuff. I think first thing we should do is probably just cull this mega list of players that I've pulled off of the HLTV list. We have this massive list of all the ANZ players that basically have played 100 HLTV officials last 13 years, more or less.
Damn.
And now we can cull them. So I
didn't even make it to 100.
You were not on the list. You were not on the list. Yeah. You may have made 100.
I don't know how many officials. Well, I've definitely played 100 officials, just maybe not on HLTV.
Well, the thing is, like, I did that list. I looked at that list, and then even Top Gun wasn't on that list. So I was like, why is Top Gun not on that list?
Yeah,
I'm sure he would have played 100. No, I'm sure he would have played 100. He's played in like these camo team. Remember in ANZ Champs, he was in like camo and fucking whatever, you know? Or was it camo or was it Fighting for Freedom? It was. Anyway.
Team Animal Squad or some shit as well.
He wasn't in an Animal Squad.
Oh, he wasn't on
Anyway, doesn't matter. Look, let's get into it. I don't know where to start with this. Maybe it's best case scenario we start with Blair, just so that he has something to say. We can imagine Blair probably doesn't have as much in-depth knowledge about ANZ CS.
Pick a player.
So pick players that you recognize, Blair, and maybe that could be our starting point.
I actually recognize quite a few of them, right? Like obviously, obviously quite a number I don't know myself, but like I'm not gonna bring up the obvious names yet, right? I'm not gonna bring up like Ali and Azur and all these guys.
I can start off strong as well. I think my personal opinion, Callum Murray should be in first.
Callum Murray. Now, what I want to know is, did Callum Murray name himself Callum Murray before the Callum Murray Dare Ice Coffee thing, or was he? I think he name changed after that. I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm sure. I think he was called something else before that, and then
was
that
there an interview or
ad.
something about this? Because I remember very clearly
there was an ad, a Dare Ice Coffee ad.
We had a sponsor called Dare Ice Coffee, where the punchline of the ad was this guy's name was Callum Murray, like calamari. Yeah. And then this guy decided to make his name Callum Murray.
Yeah, like, and why? Imagine that. Imagine that kind of impact. There, Ice Coffee. You're never going to get that in another sport. You know what I mean? Like,
true.
People remember that to this day. You know, that is the advertisement that keeps on giving. So shout out ANZ Champs one time.
I will. You know what? I'm gonna tentatively put Callum Murray at the bottom of honorable mention just for the name.
Okay.
Wow, that's huge.
At the bottom. All right, so let's keep going down. Right. So, Burn, are you okay? I'd put that name in. I remember very clearly, but I don't think it's done much. But yeah, Burn, Danger, Energy. I know these guys, but I'm gonna pick up the big ones. Dexter, obviously, even though he claims to be Asian. You know, you're not Asian, buddy. You're Aussie. Dick Stacey. Has to be there. Emag's the only one who jumps out for me from the rest, but I'll just keep him there for now. No one else. Hats, Hazza for me. Ins, absolutely. I think of Infrequent as well. I think he's in a conversation somewhere. Justin, JKS, obvious. None of the case, but we got Liaz at the bottom. Yep. Malta, right? It seems like obvious names, but like, shout out Moe one time, but no, I don't think I can.
You don't want him?
Yeah, conversation.
Leave him.
Yeah. Of course, mate. Come on.
Yeah. Panic. I don't know. Not really. Not all time for me.
He's all-time Red Bull drinker.
He has got the most famous clip in ANZ CS, so I think he gets in the conversation just out.
All right.
I think he's an honorable mention.
He's an honorable mention.
Can we put Smooth Crim 22 in honorable mentions as well?
Smooth Crim.
All right. We need to obviously have Ricky. Where's Ricky? Ricky's there. Yeah, for sure. Sponge, Sniper. Yep. Absolutely. We got Top Gun. Texter, I guess a conversation to be made. And then from New Zealand, I just go with Grat and obviously with Sicko.
Right. And
Sicko.
And Tux.
Nedic, surely.
Where's Steeler? Steeler for sure.
And Tux as well.
Yep, Tux would have been one of mine as well. Yeah, so now that we've got Blair's uneducated opinion, let's get Pilsky's educated opinion.
I'd throw in Havoc as well.
Havoc's a good one.
Let's talk about it.
Where's Havoc?
between.
I think there's a few for me that have been missed. So what would you put in there, Pilsky? Is there anyone that you think has been missed? That
we're
would
top
be worth
20, right?
Yeah, 20. It goes pretty deep. Let's be real.
It's quite hard. Okay, so maybe we should just overdo it and then cut some people.
Yeah, that's what I think we should do.
All right, APOC.
Yep. ASAP, surely.
ASAP.
I think Bibby, even unironically, worth a conversation. Maybe even as an honorable mention. Yeah.
Bibian?
Bibian. Yeah. One of the few players that plays in an international roster from Australia, just saying. I understand.
Conversation to be had, yeah.
Conversation.
Hey, if anyone can talk about women's Counter-Strike, I'm here, right?
I mean, I would love to say
I can battle
Destiny,
for this.
but
I would love to say Destiny too.
Okay, is this all time or is this Go?
Go onwards.
Modern day.
Well, that kind of kills it a little bit because Destiny actually had a lot of like overseas towards the end of 1.6. Actually,
he had a couple of good results early in CS:GO as well, but I mean, he probably doesn't make the cut. But I'm just going to screen him anyway.
The same thing can be said for Ferg, for example, where he's like literally, I think he was top 4 on a major in 1.6, if I remember correctly, which is playing for a French team. So that's kind of like. That kind of eclipses like what most people look for as a start.
By the way, do we not have Offnu?
I feel like Offnu, New Zealand.
Yep.
Okay, and Zuzi as well. Yeah, cool. I was in
Zuzi. Okay, where are we at? We're in the K's now.
Yeah. I don't think any of the K's.
James, we didn't put James in. We should put James in.
Yeah, for sure.
James makes it for sure. Yep. The filtering's a little weird. It's showing up as like 50 odd maps played for Top Gun, so maybe that's why.
That might be why. Yeah.
But it's kind of weird. I thought it'd been way more.
Well, Top Gun's in now on our list anyway. So fuck the 100 games played rule, YOLO. Because he's definitely got more than 100 for sure. Reckon
just not on HLTV. That's all.
I mean, Sonic.
Do we get Urcast?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a top 20 players.
Both lists, then, yeah.
He was on the Asia list, to be fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
He probably should have been on the ANZ list. Did he play most of his career in ANZ? Or I think he played probably about as much.
Did we not put Vexite yet?
Yeah, Vexite's
just sitting there.
We missed Vexite? Oh, shit. Okay, yeah, Vexite. Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, what about TJP?
Yam. We missed Yam as well.
I think we...
Yaman, yeah.
I think Blair and I talked about Yam before
we mentioned it.
It's probably it now for me.
Addict, maybe not.
Addict and Chell can go in. And still
Chell top 20?
What about Raz?
Raz definitely. I mean, sure. But he doesn't make a top 20. There's no question about that in my mind. Okay, all right. So
I think that's enough.
We've got a few funny ones. We've got a few serious ones. Let's start putting people on the list. Now, I think there's no question we just put JK as number 1. Like that's no doubt.
Can we have two? Can we each of us have like this is something I thought about post the Asian list, right? Can we have like veto powers, like 2 veto powers?
Yes. I think we did that. We sort of we sort of did do that
unofficially,
yeah.
But let's each of us have like 1 to 2 veto options available. But yeah, that's a 2 in total.
Okay, but if you have 2, I was going to say 1, but if you have 2, then you can use your veto to veto someone's veto. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm done.
So if you get 2, you can veto a veto.
Put your veto where your mouth is. Yeah, I'm down for that. JKS, the best ever from Down Under, modern day Counter-Strike. I guess of all time as well, because even 1.6, even if you, which I don't know, I won't lie, I don't know much about source 1.6 from ANZ and that part of the world. But even with that in contention, I think what JKS has done in the past 10 years is something no one's ever come close to.
Undoubtedly, for sure. Yeah. I mean, he's won tournaments. We don't really do that Down Under.
Yeah,
he's won absolute S tier elite tournament as a fucking stand-in as well, which is just insane. So JK's number 1. I don't think we have any argument about that.
I think that's an easy one. I think that's very easy. But number 2 to 5 is probably hard.
I think we're going into In's Dexter territory for sure.
Yeah, In's Dexter. I mean, if that's the conversation, to me, then it's Dexter easily over In's. Okay. Just for purely having been able to do it in an international roster and make top 4 at a major, like which Inns has not done.
For sure.
But then I don't know if you would want to consider like what about like Azar, Liaz, Gratisfaction, because top 4 major.
This is where I mean you could say Azar for longevity and top 4 major maybe could be above Inns.
Correct.
And to be fair, for those that aren't familiar with early CSGO, Azar was an extremely good individual player. Like he was maybe the best rifler in Australia in early Go. He was a very aggressive rifler as well. You know, as he got towards the tail end of his career, he still was good. He still had impact, but he wasn't like, I feel like in Oz and early go, like end of source early go, Azza was just this player that could like just legit win you a game, just run around and absolutely fucking own everyone. And I feel like in that era of CS, riflers could do that a little bit more. There was more room to do that. Okay, I guess I would probably put, for that reason, maybe Inns under Azza, even though I think Inns is maybe... Well, the thing is, for Inns, I'm like, he was a better individual player in the middle to like later era of Go and into CS2, but I kind of look at Azza in early Go being kind of on par with Inns, individual skill-wise, probably.
I think I'm okay with Azza number 3, personally. Again, just because I think that top 4 at the major makes a big difference, and the fact that he's IGL'd a lot.
Are we locked in? Are we locked in with a Dexter top 2?
Unless you've got a veto, unless you want to veto it, I don't really think there's much of an argument against it personally.
I don't want to. I think Dexter definitely would be in a top 5 conversation for sure. And JK is no question. Azza top 3, top 4, no question at all.
I'm not as married to Azza top 4. No, not necessarily as married to Azza top 3 as Dexter top 2. If that makes sense, personally, like I just the way that I look at it is, if we're not looking at best, okay, the category is not best individual player of all time, whatever, it's greatest, and great to me, greatest. JK has no question. Then it's probably, at least in my mind, Dexter, because he's made top 4 at a major, because he's done it in a team that's not an ANZ team, he's gone out on his own, and he's had success even in ANZ teams. Azza, because again, top 4 at a major, I slightly weight Dexter higher just because I think it's, at least I have a little bit more interest in the fact that he was able to do it without an ANZ roster as opposed to with an ANZ roster. I think you could go either way depending on what your argument is. Obviously, people will say it's harder with an ANZ roster. But I would argue being able to IGL an international roster is maybe a little bit harder. I think there's a little bit more value there, personally, for me.
I think the thing is that, like, for me, I might even put Azza above Dexter. Not that I disagree with any of your points, but just because he not only top 4 major IGL for an Australian team, and was on that team that made a run to the top 4 of the major, but he was also like a trailblazer in the Oz scene. Like the longevity is insane. Yep. He was part of the original roster that actually like kind of paved the way for all of OCS. So like really, he's done everything. He's literally done everything you could possibly do for the region, Azza. You know, he's got the results. Yeah,
I actually am gonna go with Pilsky here, because the very similar conversation to what we had with the Asian players as well, right? Like Sponge, who we'll talk about as well, and that particular crew were by far the best team from APAC. Period, right? Like they were absolutely untouchable in the beginning of CS:GO. They managed to catch a lot of teams off guard, right? They've had upsets. They were that one annoying thorn in the side of EU supremacy coming from this part of the world, not just Australia, Asia, every part together. And you can't forget that Azur was Inns when Inns was popular. You know what I mean? Like he had that role. When JKS came in, JKS was like this, like a Netic, right? Like kind of like the new kid on the block. Sponge's IGL. And then it was Azur who was like the heavy hitter. And I agree with you. I guess we kind of tend to forget because he transitioned to being an IGL, top 4 the major, with Kassad and everything. And obviously his career did kind of taper off, but we kind of remember like what he did. And like Pilsky said, just the impact, the trailblazing impact that he had with that Vox Seminole team. Yeah, I'd pip him to number 2 over Dexter.
Like every high for us, really, like most of the big highs for OS and most of the important moments in OS history, Azza's right there.
Like JKS and Azza right next to each other.
There. Yeah, legit, So if it's greatest for me, I think that is like some greatness, He's literally dragged the region like into relevancy and also put some of the best placements for the region ever on the board,
Yeah, no, I mean, at the end of the day, like I think it's a conversation for sure between 2 and 3, but for me, for Azza and Dexter, but I'm not like necessarily, I'm not going to use a veto on it.
I think it's very close. It's fine. But I think for that reason, like even though it's like mad respect to Dexter, and I could really go either way on it. That I think the nostalgia is what's like tipping me over the edge, to be honest.
Yeah, and I guess if we were in a world where Dexter and FlyQuest had done a little bit more, that probably would put Dexter over the edge. But unfortunately, it wasn't really, what I guess everybody wanted it to be. So that may be the difference maker. All right, then let's move on from 3. Now, I'll just throw a few more names in here for like maybe, let's say, a top 6 to 8. Obviously, Liaz is definitely worth a discussion. Gratisfaction, obviously, part of that top 4 at the major as well. So those 2 plus Ins are probably, for me, somewhere in the next 3, unless I'm egregiously forgetting somebody.
I think... I think Liaz or Ins, but I lean towards Ins just because I find his like peaks more impactful. But a lot of that is domestic, to be fair. So I don't know.
I think I would personally lean toward Liaz.
I could also go Liaz.
I think if you take yourself back in time, 8 years, Pilsky, and remember how people thought about Liaz, you know what I mean, and what he was able to do, and then the fact that he went and played internationally, but in positions that he was not familiar with, and has essentially made a career out of that now. I think the fact that Liaz was able to do that and be able to be, again, a top 4 major contender, something, again, that Ins has not even come close to. I think I could go with Liaz. Probably going to put him over the line for me.
Achievement-wise, Liaz. Yeah, achievement-wise, Liaz wins. And that's the thing. I feel like when it comes to Ins and the later Greyhound boys, right? And they've achieved quite a bit in their time.
And also, quickly, everything that Ins has done, essentially, Liaz has done as well in his career.
He's been along with him, yeah.
He's been along for the ride.
I may or may not be looking to move Liaz down if we make a case for someone else down, later on in this video. But for now, I think I'm okay with Liaz being there in the top 4, above Ins at least.
Yeah,
surely it's Ins next then.
I think it's probably for me. Yeah, obviously it's a conversation right now. If we're gonna go in that direction between Ins and Gratisfaction, like, would you have Gratisfaction next as number 6?
No,
I have Ins.
No, I mean, like, as in after Ins, as in between these next 2 slots. Was it Ins versus Gratisfaction?
I don't know.
Who's the other person that you would think would go into a top 6? Let's say, if not Grat. Surely it has to be Grat.
Grat's a hard one, I guess.
It's hard because he's not been playing for a long time, but I think just again in terms of the achievements that he's had, they have been far stronger than almost every other ANZ player.
Yeah.
Right? Like
this, I guess we could have Grat.
Okay, this is gonna be a bit of a hottish take, but where would you start putting in Sponge in the conversation?
He would probably start coming somewhere in the low top 10s potentially.
I mean, he's absolutely in the top 10, but that's the thing. Like, where do we start putting him in? Because
it's probably here. Like, it's probably here, like 7, 8, 9, 10 somewhere.
Yeah, the thing that makes it hard though is like similar to the Asia list. Like, I feel like the achievements of these players, kind of like placement wise, and like in terms of actual like winning games and placing in tournaments, kind of eclipses what like players of that era were even able to do, just because they just weren't able to be as competitive, really, with all of the extra things. But that's where you talk about greatest, and it's like people that were like trailblazers or like setting the trend, I guess, for the rest of the region. Yeah, so I think it's a hard conversation because for me, like, Sponge is part of that early era into like the North America kind of era. And at times, to be honest, Renegades did have some like troubling placements, I guess, where it's like the whole thing that I remember about being a big Renegades fan was like they would often just like completely shit the bed or like choke games.
Yes.
All of the time.
I remember I remember casting a 13-0 against, might have been SK Gaming in ESL Pro League one time.
Yeah.
Or it was 16-0, so it would have been 16-0 back then, yeah. And those are the kinds of games you're talking about where it's like that just whatever. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It kind of gets hard from here because like a lot of it is a bit vibes. We're going to be vibes merchants, I think, a lot on this in this conversation because beyond Gratisfaction, Liaz, Azza, obviously making top 4 and JKS, and then
Ali has to be here somewhere.
Yeah, does he? I mean, does he in the top 10?
I think so. I think if you want to put Ins, Liaz, Ins in there, then Ali probably has to be in there somewhere too.
Ali wasn't part of the Greyhound core for a very, very long time. He was actually playing in order for a very long time. So if you're thinking Ali, then you've got to start thinking Malta, Dick Stacey.
I kind of feel Ali had his peaks and impact he had were above the ones you just mentioned right there, like Malta and Dick Stacey and everyone.
They were a little bit more role playery, those guys.
Yeah, Ali was good at one point, man, and sure, he kind of like
what about became. But then at that point, why are we not talking about like someone like Vexite? His tenure's been quite strong in the FlyQuest Greyhound times, which has obviously been a little bit later on. But are we more impressed by the early Greyhound / Renegades era, which is where Ali would be having his success, versus now the late Greyhound / FlyQuest era, where Vexite is having his time in the sun? Like, I don't think that Ali's results are necessarily that much better than Vexite.
I feel Ali had more. It was more memorable for me, at least, and it could be whatever bias or whatnot. But it felt
would you put Ali at 7?
No, top 10.
No,
I think
he's top 10.
Yeah.
All right, let's put Alistair here then, and potential moves.
So the case I'm going to make for Ali right now, I think it's going to be relevant to similar players, would be he was instrumental in the Greyhound lineup, getting to where they are right now. Fluck is picking them up and everything. And yes, he fell off, really like tapered off at the end over there. But you could see how much of an impact he had on the team, persona-wise, aura-wise, whatever. And if you look at Vexite, not saying he's a bad player, like he has been looking pretty solid despite some hiccups along the way. But he hasn't had that, oh shit, Vexite's popping up. Yeah. Vexite's the guy who's carrying this particular event. I haven't heard any of that in the past, ever since he's joined his team, in all honesty. He's just been doing his job. So for me, Ali trumps him.
Okay, so then I guess here's another angle for this. Do we value what Ali was able to do over the likes of some of the early Renegades / immunity players like, James, Sniper, Havoc, Top Gun? Is that has he had a better impact, greater impact than those kinds of players?
I think so, yeah.
Yes. Although I think
he's had more opportunities to do it though.
Which yes, true, but you can't really put it against him for that, right?
In this case, then who are we putting above him in 7, 8, and 9? Okay,
Sponge is going to be above him somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yeah, just put the name in.
Cultural impact.
Cultural impact.
Cultural.
So then again, like I'm thinking, like I've asked you guys a couple of questions, and I'm like, I don't think based on that we've got anyone that we can put above Sponge and Alistair there. You know what I mean? Based on the categories, like the conversations we just had.
Ali, yeah.
Who would possibly go there? If not someone like, James, a Sniper, a Havoc, a Yam, a Vexite. Like, those are probably the next. Sicko would maybe be the only one that we haven't talked about here that could potentially go above. Just because of his tenure, And he was obviously in the team for a long time before Ali. He was in that whole... He's the whole time. He's been the whole time there.
Tenure, sure, but...
Peak's obviously not as high, maybe, but...
Apart from farming, and I don't just really remember Sicko really doing much outside, honestly.
Sicko, at points, was the best player in Australia domestically.
Yes, I agree.
But that was when he was an AWPer, and that wasn't when he was rifling for...
he came into Greyhound as an AWPer originally as well.
Oh, yeah.
He AWPed for a 12-month period or something like that before they got Ali in.
Was it Grat or Ali?
Grat left, and then they picked up, I believe this is the order, I could be wrong. I believe Grat got picked up, then they picked up Sterling for like 6 months or something. That didn't work out. Then they picked up Sicko, and then after Sicko was in for a long while, they picked up Ali at some point. And then Ali became the rifler, and Ali became the AWPer, and Sicko became a rifler.
Right, Grat.
That's my belief of the
Grat, Sponge, I guess.
I put Sponge at 7th, yeah.
Sponge, Ali.
As well. Can't really think of anyone above them where I can be like, yeah, absolutely. After this, because we're also talking about like longevity and whatnot, and I guess this would kind of go into source days or 1.6 days as well, but I think of all the immunity players you mentioned, I feel Sniper definitely would be the top for me.
Well, he was also early Vox.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the original Vox as well.
And he was just there, kind of a farm team for Vox at that point, or Renegades, whatever.
The thing is, if you're going to put Sniper, I think if you're going to put Sniper, you have to then put Havoc and probably at least Havoc above Sniper, because Havoc was in that team a lot longer. Top Gun actually left Vox very shortly before they became Renegades.
See, this is where I'm going to probably disagree, and I'm going to say that players like Malta or like players that were in that Greyhound core that have actually done things at international events and had some good upsets, had some good runs, played in majors, definitely deserve to be way above those players in the list. Not because of like,
I think I agree.
No. Not because they weren't like trendsetters or anything, but like the thing is that just those teams that like Immunity that attended majors and things like that they didn't go on like runs, you know?
Yeah.
They never actually went on runs. They very rarely got upsets. Sometimes they were competitive. That was like the bar.
Immunity especially didn't like.
Whereas like
Renegades
Greyhound
sometimes
actually upset some international teams and actually went on some decent runs, you know, in certain events and actually made it into majors and stuff. So
I'm 100% on board. So for then in that respect, the conversation would be Malta, Hats, Dick Stacey, Sicko. Where are we placing those guys? That's probably the next ones.
I don't think it's going to be accurate because my memory is not so good, but maybe like I feel like Dick Stacey was on every version of like Sicko.
Sicko's got to go first. Yeah, Sicko's got to go first. I think, in my opinion, just because he's been with all. So if you, I think we can go back and look at the Greyhound roster. Like if I go on Greyhound HLTV and look at like who was in that roster for the longest time, I'm pretty sure Sicko was like the guy that was there like more or less the whole time.
And at points, he was absolutely like the best player in domestically. Like I remember there was domestic seasons where Sicko was AWPing for like Kings or like Order, and he would like the whole season. This was like over a season of like round robin competition or something like that. He had like a 1.7 rating in one of the seasons or something. It was absolutely ridiculous. Like he was fisting people. He was dropping 30 like every game.
So Sicko was on that team from early 2019 to mid. Well, I can't. Where does it go to? Early 2019 until very end of 2023. So early 2019 to start of 24. Let's just say
2019 was like their best year, wasn't it?
Dick Stacey was there from 2018 until
you guys
2020. And then Malta was there from 2018 until 2022. So I think, to be honest, just in terms of tenure, it's Sicko Malta or Sicko Hats Malta. Yeah, so like it's either like Sicko Malta Hats or Sicko Hats Malta. And then
I don't group them together. Like
I don't think it particularly matters, actually. Yeah. Really, I don't think any of those players are like that much more impactful. These are all like, for me, outside of Sicko being a hard carry player in ANZ, actually.
They're all
Hats,
sort of similar,
Dick Stacey and Malta are all just like role players who have had their moments, who have been very consistently very good players and very good parts of these teams, but not like crazy firepower impact.
Because Dick stickers.
Because
Dick stickers, more cultural impact.
I'm just saying, I agree with you, but if you're going to differentiate someone, and remember, guys, all this isn't just about being super objective about stuff.
Okay.
We have our points.
I could see it if you use a veto on it. If you veto Dick Stacey at 12 and say he should be higher, because like
I might do it later on. I might do it later on. I want to fill it out first. I want to fill it out first, and then depending on that, I might use my veto powers to like.
I'll put aura points so we remember.
But this is where we start to get into the like old Vox players and immunity players. I would say.
Can we just start throwing in names? Can we just start throwing in names and fill it out and then reorder it?
Usilo,
Sniper,
Rike,
Yam,
Avik, Top Gun.
Who? Is that it? Are we missing anybody?
Avik.
I'm just looking at we have Avik. I'm just looking at the NZ players.
James.
James. All right.
EMAG?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
EMAG was in that immunity team as
well. Okay.
Okay, so of those players, the differentiating factors are Sniper was at IGL. Ricky had a bit of an international stint in North America. Top Gun was out of the roster by the time they became Renegades. He left before they became Renegades because he couldn't move overseas. So for me, that probably drops him down a little bit. Usilo Ustillo was probably the one that stuck around the longest.
Wasn't he the first player to get picked up? Oh no, not first. One of the earlier players picked up from Immunity to join Renegades.
He was the first one.
He was like the star rifler in Immunity. It was like Ustillo and Riquet were like the big heavy hitters.
And then he got picked up at Renegades, and that's when he moved to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So he
also
was in the North America era.
Top-rated player at IEM Sydney 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ustillo having one fucking stand-in map. That was hilarious.
1.7 rated or something.
What did they call him? The lobster? Ustillo is a lobster.
I don't know. I actually still to this day don't know where that's from. Where is the lobster meme from? I have no idea.
I think it's from a caster. Yeah.
I think it was Harry and Tom Biz casting.
Right.
And for some reason, Harry said lobster. I don't know why to this day.
That does sound like a Harry thing to do.
Ustillo is a lobster.
Yeah.
Let me look it up.
So my big question here is like, are these players more successful than someone like Nedic?
Vexite?
Or
dude, how are we not talking about Vexite? You can't even mention Nedic until Vexite's on the list. Like that's illegal.
Vexite's got to go.
Vexite's on the list? Vexite should be on the list.
Vexite's got to go in somewhere.
It's 10 maybe. Is Vexite 10?
Probably not.
What has he achieved? What's he achieved?
Not over Sicko, Malta, Hat, Stick, Stacey, I don't think. Just because all of those guys have had deeper runs than Vexite have had.
Yeah, but is it because he couldn't make it because of the teams who were in?
Yeah, but they were all in. It's the same team, bro. It's pretty much the same team. Like, obviously, it's the latter iteration, but like you can follow the transition of that original Greyhound roster all the way through Renegades Order into FlyQuest. So it's kind of the same team. Yes, I understand it's like the ship of Theseus, right? Have you guys seen that? The ship of Theseus where they change one board on the ship over time and it's the same ship, but there's not a single same piece in it. And I think we're at that point now where like the original Greyhound roster, there's not a single same piece as current day FlyQuest. But because of that journey has gone on that way, I think that there's not that much differentiation to me between those rosters. Like, I don't think you can necessarily say FlyQuest is a worse team or a better team than that previous Greyhound. Like, to me, they're like almost the same in terms of the results that they have. It's just they're doing it in a different era. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think that Greyhound, the original Greyhound with the Sicko, Malta, Dick Stacey, Hats, Dexter kind of lineup, I think probably did, at least vibes-wise, if I go back and look at the results, maybe it changes. But I think they had deeper runs in more meaningful tournaments than current-day FlyQuest has, and the majority of Vexite's career has been in, obviously, current-day FlyQuest / the Greyhound that they were prior to being in FlyQuest, and that was the team that, for example, didn't qualify to a major, where they were expected to. You know, you go back again to the former Greyhound roster, and they were qualifying for everything that they were expected to qualify for. You know, they never didn't manage to do that. So I think I'd probably give Vexite plus points for being a better individual player than most of those guys from 9 onwards. But in terms of results wise, where he sits, and having also spent a lot of his career in Order, not playing in those international tournaments, you know, I would say he's probably at best for me 13.
It's also, first, I agree with all the points, but also if you look at the immunity guys, right? I'm talking about like, you know, Ustillo and a lot of these guys, it's more about what did they really achieve themselves, right?
I think that's fair, 100%. We can almost possibly kill some of those immunity conversations immediately.
Yeah, it's about longevity. And for me, the reason I put in like people like Sniper, like James, and you know all the guys from the immunity lineup, the ones I remember clearly were from 2013, 14, 15, and post 2015 is when they kind of really tapered off and fell off, right? But they were there in the early days. They were the second best team from the region, and by extension, the entirety of APAC, when APAC was, let's be real, just Australian teams who were like just kicking everyone's asses over there. But apart from them being there at that time, they didn't achieve much either. So, but I can't deny the fact they did qualify for the majors, depending on whatever the format is, et cetera, et cetera. They did qualify for the majors. They are known names, but that's about it.
Well, what do you think about what I've just put there? I think that's as an order.
Fine. I think that's fine, actually.
I think Sniper should be top 20, but we can talk about it.
I think I'm willing. This is where I'm kind of like leaning more into like vibes and history a little bit more. But I'm thinking like Tux.
Yes, I think Tux is worth a conversation,
Tux,
or at least an
Top
honorable mention.
Tux, Top Gun, Sniper, all players that like were very important, like for putting AUCS on the map. And were like big community figures. Not only did they win a lot of domestic titles, but also like they are, you know, Tux is like the poster boy of IEM Sydney for the longest time, and like the poster boy for AUCS, and has also obviously won a lot of domestic titles and played in plenty of international events. I think Top Gun early on was like pretty much like Top Gun and Sponge for me are kind of like the talismanic players that are like, we're just a bunch of the lads. We are plumbers and like fucking like tradies and shit from Australia that just play CS for the passion. And we're trying to make it work. And they kind of are the ones that kind of kickstarted the whole era. Top Gun, I've heard stories about Top Gun not even having proper settings or not even having a config and just rocking up to LANs and like majors and shit and playing with like the default crosshair.
He's the type of guy that
just being like, oh yeah, like sitting down at a PC for a match at the major and going, yeah, this sense feels good-ish. Like I could play with this. Like
no
that,
problem, bro. Feels good, man.
Okay, so speaking of Top Gun, right? Just kind of like a bit of an intermission while we're discussing all of this. Firstly, I used to play LAN like that as well, like, you know, back in 2000s. I'll be like, huh. And my friend's like, what's it sense? I'm like, I don't know, man. Let's see what this feels like. just feel it out. I'm like, yeah, this is good. Also, I have lived a couple of Top Gun stories in some of the Asian minors I've worked. I'll just tell you this, man. The guy he's a character, and I say this in the nicest way possible, right? He is very magnetic, right? A lot of people just like, he just has, every time I've seen him, just there with his cut off like t-shirt, cup, just killing, crushing a couple of beers, and people just surrounding him listening to his stories. And then of course, as the night progresses, I've seen many a veteran of the Asian scene try to hold their own with Top Gun, with Azad, late at night while drinking. And let me just say, they've all failed, and I've seen them fail miserably. Like hotel security having to get involved levels of miserably. And Top Gun's still going at it. He's like, where'd that cunt go? I'm like, I passed out in the foyer. He's like, want a drink? I'm like, yeah. So anyway, jokes aside, Top Gun really did have, because when I look back at that the Vox lineup, right? You're looking at all these guys, and Sponge obviously the most talismanic, I guess, right? In the IGL, outspoken, all of that. Top Gun is the only other guy, to be honest, who was like doing all of that. Everyone remembers Top Gun, you know, just like popping off and high-fiving everyone. So aura points wise, being there at the beginning, being one of the trailblazers, who wasn't just a passenger on that trailblazing machine.
Right.
I would put
100%. He had a lot of impact. He was a talismanic player who really kind of brought the scene up a lot. He had just such a fucking magnetic personality. Like, honestly, very, very important player for the scene, I would say. Even if like he stopped playing very early, properly, I guess. He was more of a player that was like, his peak was late source and early go.
So you want to put him in the top 20? You want him to just sneak his way into 20, maybe?
I think put him there for now. I think
and someone else comes in, we drop him down.
I think put Tux in there. I think Tux similarly. I think it's hard not to put Sniper in there. That feels wrong.
I understand why, but I think also if you look at the career that Sniper had, it peaked very early in CSGO, and there was a couple of moments where he was, you know, like for example, first Aussie player, like in terms of the Vox roster, to play internationally and even into immunity. You know, he was like able to do it on multiple rosters, which I think is really impressive. But do you value that over, you know, the contributions of some of the more modern day second best team players, if that makes sense? You know, you're looking at ASAP, Chell, Netic.
I'd value that more.
Addict.
I think they've done more.
Hazard, etc.
These guys, wait, we're talking about the immunity guys, right?
Well, we're talking about Sniper specifically in this case.
Okay, they beat it's going to be really hard to ignore the source heritage, right? Pre-CSGO, because they were very active back then, but we got to stick with the modern day era, because even for the Asian list, we didn't really put that much of value to Solo's,
No, we didn't.
1.6 career and everything, right? Even though he was the best. So they beat the best in APAC. And look, it's not their fault they were born at that time. It's not their fault they were active at a point in time, but they were the second best team, second best group of players from the entirety of Asia Pacific who qualified for multiple majors and multiple events out there. Sure, they didn't achieve much overall, but they still managed to do that. Your new crop of players aren't top 4 or 5 in Asia.
Fair.
Yeah. Never happening.
Yep. Fair.
Or it could have been close at some point, not right now. So just by that logic, I just can't put them over the old boys.
So do we slot Sniper in here?
I guess so. This is where, like, I don't know. I feel weird because, like, I almost feel like someone like Bibi is like the best female CS player, arguably. So she is like someone that could be in the conversation. I feel like Nedic, for example, or ASAP are just so good as individual players that it feels kind of almost wrong not to put them in the list.
They just don't have the results, so that's the unfortunate
They just don't
thing.
they don't have results. So.
And I think it would also be unfair to Bibian to put her there, because the achievements are not. It's really hard to compare, man. Like I've worked in ESL Impact for years, like going back to DreamHack Showdown for like almost like 7-8 years. And it's one of those things where, in the conversation, you're like, where can you really put them? Is she the best from Australia? Absolutely. I think there's absolutely zero doubt about that. And what she's achieved for the region, in a way, it's kind of a little similar or akin to JKS, right? In a way, just by herself going out, playing for the NA teams. Everyone seems to love her. She's great personality as well. Even got the aura points from my standpoint. But considering it is still, at the end of the day, a closed circuit, can I, in any good faith, put her in a top 20 when you have these other players who might not have had a tenure outside of Australia, but they did it in a much more harder environment? So I think an honorable mention would be the best.
I think honorable mention is fine for me.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, shall we I feel like we can spend like 5 minutes just running through the list and telling some quick stories about some of these players, because there's some pretty hilarious lore in AUCS.
There's a lot of
can we start with the Winterfox guys, because like we haven't really touched on Winterfox at all, but if you remember, that was
I was thinking we could go left to right and we could just mention like pick out some players to mention some funny
APOC's
anecdotes.
Right, first one, APOC.
Yeah, so APOC, for those that don't know, APOC is a player that has won a domestic title, like a nationals, in every version of CS. So 1.6 Source and Go. That is the length of this guy's tenure. He's played overseas. He definitely gets an honorable mention because he's been kicking around for ages. I mean,
I honestly didn't believe
of the scene.
When he retired, like when there was no like retirement tweet or anything like that. There was no like official retirement, but like when he left that, I think it was Avant. When he was out of that Avant roster, I was like, oh, he'll be back. You know what I mean? Like he was one of those guys that I was like, he's never retiring.
And he was already like 30 something. Like
he was definitely one of the oldest players. Yeah,
like
for sure.
Early to mid 30s. Yeah. I want to shout out Badonka. From ANZ Champs. This was a guy that would wear a fedora while playing like competitive games and take a picture with a sword, like he studied the blade, like absolute fucking
I don't even know like where did he pop up from. He all of a sudden he was like he just was never he never existed on my radar, and then all of a sudden he was in like a top, like let's say easily a top 8 team, maybe even like a top 6 team in ANZ Champs for like 2 years or a year and a half, and then he was just gone. It was like, what? Was Badonka a fever dream? Did he even exist?
I remember him. He existed. That's real.
You know.
You mentioned Burn there, Blair. What do you remember about Burn?
It's the name, man.
Deagle.
I remember
Deagles.
Burn. I remember he for me, like every time Burn had a Deagle, I'd always say he's good for one, and then he'd be good for one. You know, that's what I remember about Burn.
It's the thing with Burn is I think it's just a bias because I did meet him in a couple of events. Yeah. Like I think one Extreme Slan, and I think it was a Chiefs jersey. I think he was playing for Chiefs at a point in time.
I think it was Chiefs into Greyhound, maybe. Or Greyhound,
maybe.
It might have been Greyhound.
He was on Greyhound. He was definitely on like the first Greyhound, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd put him on honorable mentions. The only reason I brought him up is because I just remember the name well because I met him and I've hung out with him. So I don't think it's fair.
We're just tellers of stories. We're just spinning a yarn.
I don't think he makes the honorable mention though. He's just had the career was a little bit too short for me.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you a Havoc story, and this is when, infamously, it's also my first international LAN ever, where Neckbreak, the Indian team, got 16-0'd by Renegades, right?
Right.
Yeah. And if memory serves me right, this is so funny. I think they were like 3-0 for Renegades or something, like 2-0 or something. And there was one of the teams, they disconnected or something went wrong basically, right? And they had to replay the round. And yes, now I remember. Renegades, or Vox at the time, the players dropped out. They couldn't play that half, and there was no damage done, right? And so Neckbreak won that round by default. There's Neckbreak with CT and Inferno. And I think they had to replay the round, and the players, the Indian player or the IGL, whoever, who was like, no, well, why should we replay the round? Like, and it's not our fucking problem, even though no damage was done, right? Yeah. And Sponge is being just very, very normal, very mature. He was like, no, man, like we were DC. No, he's actually being very normal. He's like, we were DC, man. Like, the rules are so and so. And this guy, and I think the Indian player was like, yeah, whatever, man, fuck this shit. And Havoc's, I'm paraphrasing. I was like, the fuck did the cunt say? He's like, we can't replay, fucking piece of shit. I'm gonna own these guys or some shit, right? And they go in and it's 16-0.
Yeah, deserved.
Sounds about right.
But that is so Havoc-y. Like, that's one thing I remember about him. He's very outspoken, almost like, you know, it's like a Sponge translator, where Sponge would get angry or fired up, but he'd still be diplomatic, and Havoc just this, you know, unleash the hounds of hell sort of guy and just go in. Super fun guy.
Legit. I think Destiny, someone that like went overseas a little bit at the end of 1.6 and going into Go. He like, it's something that like he hasn't played much overseas or anything. There's a lot of dramas behind the scenes, a lot of rumors about Destiny as a human being. But
no fly list.
I think that I've heard he was on a no fly list, so he couldn't play internationally and things like that. But this guy was undeniably fucking legit. Like,
he was good.
To play against this guy, it was impossible. Like, he was very, very good, even to this day. Like, fucking even when Valorant came out, this dude was running around in Valorant fucking owning people. So, I mean, that's another player worth mentioning. I mean, Emag and Ferg, some of these guys. Like, Ferg, for those that don't know, like, top 40 in 1.6 at a major, playing for a French team. Like, used to play in the French scene. I think it was AAA, if I remember correctly.
That sounds right.
That he played for. So he has like a lot of tenure as well.
Okay, what about, and I know he's not on the list, but because you were talking about Destiny, I just thought, Gaza, man. What if we would have had Destiny and Gaza in the modern era of Counter-Strike? Can you imagine Destiny and Gaza on FlyQuest? Oh my god, that would be aura farming.
Those two, it was like players that were incredibly good at CS, but maybe hit the pipe like in between maps. You know, like whether that is true or is not true, they definitely had some serious aura towards the end of 1.6. They played internationally early on in Go. They either had issues like no fly list, I've heard, or, and I'm not saying like one of the other players,
being on a fly list is just so insane to me.
Or vac bans and things like that as well. I've heard that definitely held back their career. I can't remember if that was Gaza or Destiny.
I think that was Gaza.
I think that was Gaza, unfortunately. So yeah, those are some players that, you know, could have definitely been something, could have definitely been competitive, and have had that international experience, similar to like APOC end of 1.6 or YAM end of 1.6 and shit like that. Like, these are all players that, you know, going into early Go were pretty legit, playing on some of those mixed teams. Who else we got? Shout out Infrequent one time, a player
who I cheat?
Literally convinced was cheating when I was an active player. You know, I remember this one game on Inferno going up B, and he was AWPing, and he had this notorious AWP. And one round I did like a wide swing, I got AWPed. The next round, okay, I'm not going to wide swing, I'm going to jiggle this time. I tried to jiggle, got AWPed. Next time I flash, I'm like, all right, throw a flash for me, I'm going to go up banana, got AWPed. The next round, throw a flash and then throw another flash to like layer them. So he's going to turn from the first one and then he's going to get flashed. But the second flash got AWP'd again. So
did you like that?
Infrequent was like unstoppable. This was back in the day.
He doesn't miss. He did not miss. It felt like he was cheating.
Atletico was just such a super team back then, right? Like they had Liaz and they had Infrequent, and then you obviously had Sonic, who was quite a solid IGL at the time, and then like a couple of role players like Chuch was in there. I remember at one point. I can't remember who the fifth was actually for Atletico at the time, but like you had Liaz and Infrequent, who were like the best AWPer and the best rifler in ANZ at the time. It was just like crazy.
Before we forget, maybe before I forget rather, I would, because you brought up Ferg. I think Ferg deserves to be in an honorable mention.
Yeah.
He's so longevity and just the presence in the scene for how long he's been.
I get it. It's just that I think a lot of the CS:GO onwards period just didn't really do anything. Yeah, there wasn't really anything.
Unfortunately,
it's all prior to that point. So you're kind of.
I know, but I don't think we're ever going to get down to.
Look, we're not filling up all of the honorable mentions.
No. I don't think we're ever going to have like all time ANZ list ever, because I won't lie, dude, I don't think any of us really know.
I don't think we can go back that far.
I think I have to speak to like Sponge, or ironically I have to speak to Ferg to get those names out. I doubt that's ever going to happen, but I feel like I've heard enough about Ferg over the years where I'm like, I'll just throw him an HM. Like, you know, if you know history, Counter-Strike history from down under, I feel like this guy's name's always been there, so I'll just throw him in.
Yep. I rate that.
Yeah. All right.
Wait, do we have Hats in the top 20? Did we not put Hats
11.
in? He's 11. He's 11. All right, that's fine. Anyone else?
At this point,
one of the names of all time.
I think we should start rearranging the top 11 to 20 now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I honestly don't really
I'm kind of okay with
care that much. I think I'm okay with it, to be honest. I don't know if there's any changes you want to make. The thing is, like, I don't have a strong opinion about who should be where. If I was to look at things, I think like, again, Sicko, Malta, Hats, like results-wise, and Dick Stacey results-wise, that's fine. Vexide, I feel like, is a better individual player than any of those guys, but hasn't had the results. Skill-wise, I might put Vexite in fucking like 8, maybe, you know?
8 or 9 somewhere.
Ricky, skill-wise at his peak, I might put him in the top 10. Ustillo, skill-wise at his peak. Yam, skill-wise at his peak, I would 100% fucking put in the top 10. That guy was unbelievable. Yam's Yam was like a perfect mechanical player in his time. Like it was like watching when I remember when like Yam and JKS early in Go played on like the same team, and they weren't on like an immunity or anything like that. It was like a mixed team of 1.6s. And like watching those guys play as someone that come from a COD Pro mod background and wasn't familiar with CS made me realize how you're supposed to play CS. Like watching some of these guys that came from Source and 1.6, like Havoc, some of these Vox Seminole guys, you know, and some of the skilled 1.6s, because the Source guys, I felt like we're talking mostly about Vox Seminole here. Like these guys, they played CSGO better, and like they knew how to play as a team better, I felt like, in Go, and they had very skilled individual players, don't get me wrong. But like I felt like when I watched the 1.6s early on in Go, like Yam, like fucking Shake Ass, and some of these guys that played 1.6, the way they played, like mechanically and positionally, and the way that they took duels was like beautiful to watch. It was like they're just standing in the right place, they were fucking tapping, they were sharp. It was fucking gorgeous. Whereas I felt like a lot of the Voxy guys, they were like much more comfortable with like, if anyone that played early Go, you know, like you could just run around, you could AD tap, like you could fucking, you know, you could run it down a little bit more, you know, had a little bit more of that style compared to 1.6.
Yeah, but I agree. Like I think one of the most infamous interviews that ever happened, I'm just going to relate to it, is when Fallen switched from 1.6 to Source in 2010, I think, because if memory serves me right, in Brazil, it was like there was more Source tournaments happening and whatnot, and there was an interview published in HLTV where it's like, yeah, I think Source is a more tactical game, because, you know, what he said was the skill level is kind of capped when it comes to, you know, movement and just gunplay and everything. So teams had to rely more on utility usage and tactics. So Fallen was quoted saying in an interview that Source is more tactical than 1.6. Obviously, that didn't go down well with the 1.6 community. And they're like, yo, follow the you piece of shit. Of course, in the end, didn't really matter. Both the games kind of died in just a couple of years after that. But there is an element of truth in that, I feel like. Because Source, in a way, was capped skill-wise, they had to adapt more with the utility, which was, again, it was more... I think utility was way more powerful in Source than 1.6, obviously, right? So I think there was an element there to the point you just made right now.
I think to some degree, that's how I feel about Valorant sometimes, where I feel like the mechanics are capped at a ceiling to some degree, and therefore it is maybe a little bit more about tactics and agents and all that kind of stuff. But that's getting into a whole another kettle of fish. Man, there are so many players here. It's similar to Asia, man, where it almost pains me not to put some players on this list, you know, given the history of the game. But that's how good these players have gotten in the modern era, and how much these players in Asia and ANZ have been able to achieve in the modern era with the more opportunities that they've been able to get. So in a way, it makes me happy, but at the same time, it makes me a little bit sad to like maybe not even put people like James or EMAG or some of these early kind of players on a fucking top 20 list, because they're so iconic back in the day.
It's also like just the luck of the draw, right? They came in when CSGO kind of popped out. They're already in the mid-20s, right? And there's so much more playing career you have. I'm looking at a lot of these guys' profiles on HLTV, and they're like around my age, right? And they're like with like mid-late 30s, basically. I'm like, it just... So they were, 26, 27 when they were like starting to get a couple of events here and there. And at that time, at a point in time, you had all these fucking freaks of nature, like, you know, Simple and Nico slowly creeping out of the corners of CIS and whatnot. So it is what it is. I agree with you. It's kind of like a little similar to how we're really struggling, or we really struggle to put Kaze and Excret in our top 10. Didn't quite pan out, right? So I'm okay with this list. I agree. I don't think there's not much rearranging we have to do over here as opposed to the Asian list, where we had very distinct periods, very distinct teams, very distinct regions. For Australia, it's more like a salad where just a top 6, 7 really sticks out. Yeah.
Any quick last shout outs you want to put in an honorable mention there? I just chucked in Hazard. I feel like he's, you know, if we've got Addict in there,
I put Hazard,
maybe like a Sterling could be in there.
Sterling should be in there, sure.
Shell maybe should be in there as well if ASAP and Nedic are in. And I think that's probably it.
Quick question for Pilsky. Yam versus Ricky at their peak. Who would you pick?
I'd pick Ricky because, especially in Ricky's era, that was around the time where you had like the Kenny S like AWP hard carry. Ricky could be a hard carry AWP. So like Ricky, because the AWP was really OP at the time, Ricky could like win you a fucking game like running around with the AWP, like aggressive AWPing. When Ricky was in his prime, it was like incredible to watch. But I'd say like would be more consistent, and like I said, he's like mechanically and positionally a very perfect player. And Yam could also AWP really well. Like a lot of that's the thing. Correct. In early Go, a lot of the players could AWP and rifle. Like Havoc could AWP and rifle. Yam could AWP and rifle. Like I feel like a lot of these players, I mean, Yam came from 1.6 to be fair, but I feel like a lot of these players in early, I feel like there almost wasn't like players who like would always just AWP or rifle. You know what I mean? Like you have an AWPer nowadays, and it's like, I'm an AWPer. I'm going to go into the next team and be an AWPer. I'm going to go into the next team and be an AWPer. I feel like in Source and 1.6 and coming into early Go, you almost had players who were like, in this team, I'm an AWPer, and then I'm going to be a rifler. That was like much more common. Whereas I feel like in the modern era of CS, you'd be like, it'd almost be like, ooh, that guy's an AWPer, but he's going to become a rifler in this team. He's probably going to be shit, you know? Like, I feel like that wasn't as much of a thing back in the day.
I mean, it's funny that you would say Ricky, because I would have chosen Ricky as well. But obviously, with the caveat being that it sounded to me like the question was AWPers, right? If we're talking AWPers, I'm choosing Ricky. If we're talking rifles, I'm choosing Yam. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a line in the sand to be drawn there. But I think we should wrap it up there. Unless there's anything you guys want to touch on very quickly. I mean, I'm glad we did this because, you know, I think it's fun to have a look at these kinds of conversations. Obviously, the Asia one as well. But even more so in the future, you know, let's go 5 years in the future and think about and watch this video back and You can actually, you know, like if we would have had one of these videos from 10 years ago, we would have been able to watch like what we were saying about, you know, Sponge and Azza and Sniper and stuff like that. It gives you a lot of like insight as to what the zeitgeist of the time was. And so maybe in, you know, 10 years time, people can watch this and think, well, that's what they thought about ANZ players back then. And now we think JKS was kind of mid and we have another 5 players above him.
And look, here's the thing. We could even be, you know, people would disagree with us. We could also be wrong as well, but at least the thought process is out there, right? And I think it's very important because right now, again, I'm going to go back to, I think it makes sense for me to say this in a video like this once more. It's about, you just can't forget the past, the history. I remember in one of the videos we did, the top 20 Asian players in modern era, people like, you know, who the fuck is Solo, right? And I won't lie, a lot of people wouldn't even know who Solo is if some of the individuals or sites like Thorn, for example, he had his own top 20 list of the greatest 1.6 players of all time. Solo was on that list, and he was one of the most prolific writers and one of the most read journalists at that point in time, which is why a lot of people who might not even know about Solo, they look it up and they're like, oh, okay, it was on a top 20 of all time list. So yeah, we don't know. And I think that's a disservice that's been done to a lot of older players, and I think, at least considering what we're doing for the region, or at least what we're trying to do for the region, or for the love of the region, that this is overall a good thing. It's a great thing.
Yep. I think so. And I feel less confident, even though I'm from OS, I feel less confident in this list than I felt in the Asia list. So I really think there is some room for movement. And if you guys in the comments let us know like what changes you'd make to the list. I'll also say, like, you know, a couple of years, there will probably be Nedic will probably be in that list, bumping a couple of the old heads off the list for sure. You know, there's a couple of players that could definitely break through in the next little bit.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the only ones that I would see not really moving all that much are 1 to 4. Like, I feel like everyone else, you can, based on what your you know, personal appreciation of certain aspects of being a Counter-Strike player are, could move people up and down. You know, do you value individual skill? Do you value team achievements? Do you value majors? Do you not value this or that?
Do you value cultural impact?
Leadership? Or
there's probably some people in there that would be like, dude, Sponge is like AUCS personified. Like, he should definitely be in the top 3, for example. You know, but some people would have that
if
opinion.
It was ANZ CS people, sure, but players, if we're talking about being a player as the category, obviously he's done a lot in his career that was not playing.
Also, we asked him to just completely delete his broadcasting career and then talk about it. It's tricky. Yeah. Because he's easily the most influential Australian Counter-Strike personality. Yes. Like, absolutely 100%, right? But he's also one of the greatest we've ever had on the desk, on the casting booth, whatever you want to call it. But you take that away, and then you're like, okay, he was, you know, he did quite a lot. I think top 7 is a good placement. Maybe, I won't lie, I could make an argument for a top 5 even. But I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this for now.
Anyway, I think we leave it. I think we leave it. Look, obviously, even as we're trying to close this episode, you can see us still like debating about it. So by no means is this by no means is this like guaranteed definitely. So if you think you have a different opinion to us, let us know in the comments. I might even take a screenshot. You to
title this video the definitive top 20 listing. If you disagree, you're a fucking rat.
I don't get to choose, by the way. I don't get to choose the title or the thumbnail when it's on the SkinClub. They do it for us. So, but I probably will, like, next week, take a screenshot of this top 20 and put it on Twitter. And that's where the people are going to really rip into it. So looking forward to that. But guys, thank you very much for watching. And let us know again if you have any different opinions in the comments. See you next time.